Welcome, everyone. We are live with our newest edition of Real Talk, where we put the real in real estate. And we've got the real deal tonight. We've got Phil Crone, Executive Director of the Dallas Builders Association. Phil, thank you for joining us this evening.
Thanks, Ashley. Glad to be here.
Fantastic. So we're going to let Phil off the hook a few minutes early because he literally has to run with another group. Where are you going after this?
So I work with the Dallas Running Club, and we have our Tuesday night run at 7 o'clock. And I've got a group that I've got to lead around the lake. So that's where I'm off to. Literally, I'll have to run.
Fantastic. Okay. Well, we will make sure to get you out a few minutes early so you can take that on later. But we've got Phil on. He's been on the show in the past. And of course, the building industry has been top of mind over the last 2 or 3 years with the explosive housing market, let's put it that way, that we've had. And so some good times, some bad times in PR for builders, been a lot of challenges over the years, supply chain, permitting issues, some bad actors, just like realtors, we're not all created equal, and I have no problem throwing them under the bus. But there's a lot of great builders and a lot of great companies out there that have done right and are continuing to do right. But tonight we want to talk about, you guys just had one of your best events. What was that, Phil? And kind of tell them what you guys, what the whole ideology is around hosting that every year.
Sure. That's our State of the Industry Summit, and they become so popular. In fact, we're doing them twice a year now. And
awesome.
Really what we try to do is we dig into.
All right, we lost Phil. He'll jump back on because he is no stranger to live television as well. So yes, Cindy Bass, this is going to be fun once we get Phil back on. There he is.
Where I am. I could hear you and I could not see me. But anyways, I was saying we had our State of the Industry Summit, and we've moved to 2 of those a year now. We always try to talk about the hot topic of the day, and sometimes that's always what we're doing in the economy right now, what's going on politically. This one was a bit different because we had 2 distinct panels, one with developers of all walks of life in the industry, multifamily, single family, volume, custom, and then a municipal panel, which I was able to moderate and host with our friends from the Development Services Department in Irving, Salina, Denton, and Dallas.
No, that's fantastic. So if anyone has not had the opportunity to attend those in the past, that is open to non-DBA members. So you just have to pay a different price, just like at MetroTex. All of our education and offerings are open to everyone, but it's one of my favorite events that I go to across the board, not even that you guys host. So I challenge everybody to go to the next one. But let's talk about the first thing that, at least from if there was a drinking game over the last 2.5 years, it was supply chain. Every time you heard that, it's like, everybody take a drink. So where are we at now with supply chain issues?
Well, I mean, to carry that pun a little bit further, I think we've sobered up, but we still have a headache there.
Yes.
There's some stability, certainly much needed stability, but just like everything else that you're finding from the grocery store to the hardware store, they've settled in at a much higher price than what they were pre-COVID. The most significant one that I know we've talked about on this show in the past was lumber, and luckily that's settled down roughly around where it was pre-COVID. But I hope we're done with the days of the drinking game, or whack-a-mole, as I used to describe it. But there's one other thing that may be on the horizon here shortly. We'll see.
Okay, and what is that? Are you going to leave us hanging on that one?
I wasn't going to leave you hanging. It's transformers, not the ones that the kids love or that we loved or still love as big kids, but these are electrical transformers that take a large electrical line and turn it into 20 or so smaller ones to plug in new homes and new developments. To make a long story short, there's a shortage of grain-oriented electrical steel, which is the component that conducts the electricity and is able to be a key component in these. A lot of the regs have changed thanks to the Biden administration about that, and may still change in the future. But the long story short, there's a shortage that we're seeing in several developments with the electrical utilities getting them. I don't see a pathway for that to get any better. If the market starts picking up, as we hope it does, then that's going to make that challenge even more significant. So that's just something we're monitoring right now.
Okay. Well, again, just, healthy expectations. If the market does start to increase like we think it is going to over the next few months, then that's just something we have to keep in mind. So going into the next segue, then home starts. Those were of a hot topic. We didn't even see a home start in sight, unfortunately, for several months there. And now it seems like we've definitely got some inventory that was sitting there for a little while. Builders were struggling over the past several months, but it seems like that's starting to heat up again. I had a final walkthrough today at a development in McKinney, and the one of the contractors that was there just said they're exhausted. They're putting their painters to death. They have all these home starts that they're running at all at the same time. So it seems like with that little trickle down in interest rates, I think end of January into February, it really got people off the sidelines. So what's that looking like as a whole for you guys?
Yeah, I mean, it's a lot of the same things that I know you and many others in the audience are looking at. Just even a small little green shoot in terms of mortgage rate decrease, and we're welcome when we see those, but we know that the reality is we're probably not going to see a ton of those throughout 2023. But any little sign of hope there brings a lot of buyers off the sidelines and into the game, and it just shows the amazing amount of pent-up demand that's still there on the new home side, on the existing home side, that just isn't being met by the realities of the market. And that's going to be, I think, what defines the challenge for the rest of this year overall. We're expecting about 34, maybe 35,000 new housing starts in the DFW market for 2023. That would be down about 25% from 22, and that's also going to be coupled with an awful lot of lots that are coming online, which we may have a little bit of a surplus there. Builders tried to keep up, struggled to keep up, pushed a lot of lots into development, and those are going to come just probably towards the end of this year. And everything, as I'm telling everyone, it's the great normalization. We're trying to get through the COVID craziness and get back to the trend lines that we can deal with and plan for.
What I love about having you on here is I have all these cool things that I can put on a t-shirt. So great normalization. I always call it, I'm like, it's the healthy recalibration, of what we want to do, because the madness that we were all dealing with, truly, I know everybody thinks it was greed, 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 but there was a lot of stress and a lot of angst that both sides was going through over the past couple of years. So that's something to keep an eye on. But, with the interest rates, obviously you had a nice analogy. Stage of grief plays into that hand, the pent up demand. That was what we saw during COVID, right? I mean, people kind of were sitting on the sidelines, and then all of a sudden, there was that pent up demand for several months, and it just came out of a chute. And so I think regardless of what interest rates do, we still have people that need to live somewhere. And with average rents in, Collin County, this is plus or minus, but good luck finding a home for less than $3,000 a month. So, and that's not even an updated home. That's just a 322, 1,800 square feet. So from something like that, I think that we're all benefiting from the fact that rents are still super stable. Interest rates still stink, but ultimately everybody wants to get into the home of their dreams, not into the right now. So, Leo, I don't know what the name of the last class was, but if you're talking about the summit that Phil puts on, Phil, what was that?
It was the State of the Industry Summit, and Mitchell Parton with the Dallas Morning News covered both of those seminars that we had, both of those panels pretty well. I think one was last week and one was yesterday. You did a good job with it.
Awesome. So yeah, you can definitely go in there and kind of get some good recaps and snippets of what was said and what was discussed there. But definitely be on the lookout. You can go on to the Dallas Builders Association website and kind of look at their upcoming education and different events that are going on there. So definitely keep an eye on that. But going back to the stage of grief, because I really liked that analogy. So you said acceptance, that's probably where truly we are, across the board. So that's what you guys really think is going on here, because it's really a small manipulation on the interest rates that we've seen overall, but a major uptick in what seems like contracts that are being written.
Yeah, and I think it's when you hit the acceptance stage of grief. In this case, you realize that the rates around or about where they are is just going to be the reality going forward. But at the same time, you've gone through prior stages of grief, realizing that you're able to buy at 3%, a $500,000 home, and at 6%, it's somewhere around $380,000, or however the math works out,
Yeah.
something close to that. So you have the reality that your buying power is, in fact, significantly decreased. You've hopefully been able to scratch together and save a little bit, even in this inflationary environment. And the reality, though, is that life is happening. We're seeing the central cohort of the millennial generation. I'm on the older side of that, but you're seeing the middle of that start to get into prime home ownership years, and life can't wait. So whether it's moving somewhere more affordable, which is relative, and we've been the beneficiary of, you're just making it work if you can. But at the same time, you've got 90% of homeowners in this country have a mortgage that's less than 5%. So it's really a story of the haves and the have-nots.
Well, and that's a good touch point, because we were talking on we had a great women's realtor summit last week, and we were doing an economic forecast, and a lot of what we were looking at was the contributing factors as to why DFW is still one of the top markets, if not the top market in the nation. Net migration is one of them. We're just right behind Florida still, as far as getting all of the relocation people from around the country. And so when people don't realize that you might have lived here all your life and feel very differently about the market, everybody else that is moving here, however, has a completely different perspective. And that's something that we need to keep in the back of our minds, because they are coming here. They're going to continue to come here. And so you got to get in the game. And that's my biggest thing, is while the interest rates are high, it stinks. You kind of got to take it on the chin, but that actually gives you a little bit more flexibility. We're seeing on the resale market that sellers are much more negotiable and giving concessions and favorable terms to the buyers, making improvements, making repairs, offering closing costs that is more of a cash to cash equation. And then same thing with the builders. I think that's something that we've seen the builders kind of get in the market, was those interest rate incentives or closing cost incentives. So is that something that we're going to still see as a trend on that side to help alleviate a little bit of that pressure?
Yeah, the at least temporary mortgage rate buy downs, I think, will go a long way, as builders have seen, to kind of ease through, or maybe validate that acceptance stage of grief, or maybe be that bridge to 24, 25, a year or two from now, when maybe there's some improvements, and you'll see the refis kick in again. But the larger builders that have the capacity to do that are the ones that are best situated, and that's what they're deploying both here and across the country.
Well, and that's important, because no, still, if you're buying the $600,000 house now and you're getting some of that benefit of the buy down programs and those additional closing costs to help alleviate some of that cash, to help burn that extra interest over the next couple of years, you got to think in the grander scheme, especially geographically. Some of the areas aren't being as hit as some of the others, but we're still seeing appreciation. It's just not double digit appreciation that we've been seeing. So, if you say on average, we're still looking at 3 to 5%, which used to be the consistent. Well, 2 years from now, that $600,000 house could still be 700,000. So you wait for the interest rates to lessen, but you're paying $100,000 more for the same home. And so I always say, bet on the constant, not on the variable. So if you want the house, the house is exactly what you need for your family. Look at the constant in play. Don't sit there and get so fixated on the variable component on there. So um, let's talk about something else. I think in regards to home starts and where we are today, because that's looked a little different. Are they healthier? Are we getting to a better normalcy? Where are we in comparison to historical years past?
I think if you look at, and I keep going back to the great normalization, just me and my catchphrases, I
Yeah.
suppose. But we're looking, the finished vacant inventory number that I like to take a look at is reverting right back to the 2013 to 2018 time period, and those weren't bad years. Those were
No.
nice, steady, normal years. I think you're seeing a lot of builders that are in the A markets, Salina and Prosper, have a lot of optimism and are full steam ahead, even pushing through different phases of some of the master plan communities up there, because they're having great sales numbers, even in this market rate environment. There are a lot of people that are very eager to tell me that they remember when rates were double what they are now, and they were able to find their way through. And a lot of times it's just a matter of perspective, where if you ask my parents what a normal interest rate is, it's probably about where it is right now. But if you ask someone younger than me, they'll probably have the illusions of maybe 3, 4, or 5%.
Well, and I know everybody says that. Well, that's fine that you say that the interest rates, you bought your first house at 12 or 15%, but the house cost looked a little different. Well, that goes across the board, but we always demonize the price of the home. We don't demonize the price of the car. We don't demonize the price of a cappuccino. We don't demonize the price of sneakers. We automatically go towards, well, oh my gosh, the biggest investment of my life is now more expensive. How dare you? But because I know it's the largest investment that somebody's going to make, and so we focus on that. But I went to Starbucks today because I needed a breakfast sandwich. We ran out of breakfast, and I was running to a walkthrough. We got allergies. I needed something to make sure I had that sitting in my stomach with allergy medicine. And I turned around, and the same breakfast sandwich that I used to buy for $3.89 was $7. And I'm like, oh my goodness. But yet we go and we find this beautiful home where the quality of construction has increased in a lot of areas and the quality of life has changed. Well, it's the perspective piece that we keep on losing out on.
I think it's obviously your home and home ownership's the largest wealth creating opportunity that the vast majority of American families are ever going to enjoy. And I think it's a good thing to have the awareness among, especially those that are aspiring for home ownership, of just how that's drifting out of reach. I mean, every $1,000 you increase the price of a home, you price 20,000 Texas families out of the ability to get there and to afford that home. Every quarter point increase in mortgage rates will price 1.3 million American families right out of the market. And I wish that they would talk to elected officials with the same enthusiasm that they're talking to us about it, because we
Yes.
would love to offer as many homes as we can to as many people who can afford it. But there's some things happening outside of our control that need to help us out in the political realm, not to mention economically.
Well, and that's a good point. And that's what people don't understand. All they see is bad builder, bad greedy builder that's building my house, and how dare you, and you're trying to rob the poor. And in all reality, everything that goes on the back end, the infrastructure, the permitting costs, the regulatory fees, the increase in, we might have been normalizing at least in getting the supplies we need, but inflation has increased the cost of those supplies. And there's so many other variables that go into place. The fact that we don't have enough tradespeople. that the average age of a tradesperson is not great. And what are we at now with our, our trades environment? What does that look like?
Well, the average, if you look across the board, the average age in the construction industry is 41, which I would contend is relatively young. But at the same time, when you're looking at very physically demanding jobs, these are it needs to be a lot lower than that, and it's even more concerning if you look at the licensed trades. The average age of a plumber in Texas, of the master plumber in Texas, is 52 years old. They've had great years for the last few years. If I'm a 52-year-old plumber that's had a few great years, I'm thinking that retirement's right around the corner.
Mhm.
Half of our workforce in the construction industry is going to be looking at retirement and isn't going to be there in 10 to 15 years. So what are we going to do about it in our trade schools? What are we going to do from immigration policy standpoint? These are big questions that are going to impact the rest of our careers in terms of the housing industry and how it fares.
Well, and I think that's the biggest thing. And it's not because it's just like realtors, right? We see all these, memes go around that it's like the 172 things that your realtor doesn't tell you they do for you. If I sat there and just droned on and all the things I do behind the scenes, that's not how I want to market myself. I want to remove that friction. I want to be that bulletproof vest. But at the same time, sometimes, you make it look too easy. And the same thing with the builders. People just think, okay, it's like I'm picking my lot, here are my colors, build my house, and they don't realize all of the other things that are going behind that. And I think the trades, it's why I started going to the industry summits. And when I heard you speak several years ago about your passion about bringing trades back into, the public education system, I thought that was amazing. I bucked against the system. My mother might be on here. She's also, we co-own the company together. I didn't want to go to college. I thought it was a racket for what I wanted to do and everything else. And so for me, it wasn't something that I wanted. But in our age group, we're around the same age. That was what you did. You went to college and took on debt or did whatever. And you sit there and you turn around and you realize as a master plumber that there she is making the squiggly face, Sherry Fearbacher. It's worked out though. Great business partners. But you look at you make $150,000 a year as a master plumber and not even be a great business person.
Yeah, and I think that's the key thing here that everybody, I would hope, would agree on, is that the way our education system is still set up and has been set up, even when we went through it, is to, with standardized tests and everything else, make students mediocre at what they're not interested in instead of extraordinary at what they are interested in. And a lot of times what they are interested in is these sorts of programs that provide trade training and education and allows young people to make a career with a very minimum amount of debt there. So speaking of droning on, I think I'll keep doing that because Ashley popped out and uh, there you go. I'll plug our college program and just keep rolling
you did
here.
Great. No,
Yes.
I heard you just like you. So it was the same thing that happened to me. So you did a great job. And as my mother just said, I'd make a terrible plumber, but I'm an amazing realtor. So you just got to find what you're passionate about. And I think that was the biggest thing. My daughter is homeschooled and has been since day one. My mother homeschools her because I was not designed for that, but she loves to train and educate. That's been her passion in the real estate industry. But that was the biggest aha for me, is realizing that all the things going through school, and I was always a top 1% student and graduated 2 years early, but they always wanted to talk about your deficiencies and not about the things that you excelled in. And when that's the vast majority of your adolescence of demonizing all of these things about yourself, man, we're really gearing people up, to go out into the real world with fire and passion and zeal to take it on.
Yeah, and I look at there's a house being built across the street from me, and I don't know if any of those guys they probably weren't anywhere close to the top of their geometry class, but they can take a pile of sticks and they can turn it into a house by looking at a set of plans and do it understaffed, undermanned, and quite efficiently. who's smarter, who's better. And it's application versus theory, and the construction industry likes application, and we need more of it.
Well, I think that's fantastic. I mean, what is something, are we seeing trades programs be welcomed back into our public education system? What does that look like, Phil?
We're seeing a lot of positives in the policy arena. That's the one thing. Last legislative session, I like to tell everybody the only two things that went undefeated were anything to do with pets and their well-being, and vocational and trade training.
Yeah.
Were the only things that the two parties in our legislature could agree on. And I'm glad that it's a bipartisan issue, both of those, but I'm glad that trade training is getting into the conversation, but it has to get into the conversation in your living room. And it's got to be, as we all, everyone who's a parent wants their children to do well, if not better than what they're doing. I'm sure your mom included on that, but I think we just have to redefine what better is, and it can include being a plumber if you're good at it. It can include running a framing company if you're good at it. And we just need to embrace the fact that there's a lot of paths out there, and not just go get your bachelor's degree. And we don't care if you're a biologist or a barista or whatever, because I think a lot of times when we're trying to talk to school administrators, they feel like the pathway for success is, and the only one, is something similar to the pathway they personally took. And
Yeah.
that need for validation on their part is, I think, costing a lot of opportunities for some kids that are going to get left behind or not feel like they're important.
Well, in a world where a lot of people think there's not opportunity, man, there is a lot of opportunity in the construction side with tradespeople across the board. So I would implore people, sons or daughters, to have those conversations, because there is a world of opportunity along that side for project managers, architects, framers, brick masons, and there's a lot of artistry that is involved in a lot of those trades as well. And so, keep on having those conversations. And Phil, thank you for always pioneering that. We need to remember more of that. Less debt and more passion
Yeah.
goes a long ways.
And I'm glad you brought up, last thing I want to add is sons or daughters on there, because our workforce in the construction industry is only 11% female right now. There's a long, long way to go. But, I'll plug our Collin College partnership. Their construction management program, their first year students is nearly 1/4 of that class are female. So, in construction management, 1 in every 4 students are female students, and we're really, really thrilled to see that. And there are a lot of good role models out there that we're putting in front of them to see them through.
Well, just as my husband would say, I'm really bossy and good with a clipboard. So, construction management can be for you as well. So let's segue into something else. And I think that's just trends and what we're kind of seeing in the building atmosphere. I mean, because I think it's changed with affordability being a key component in a lot of these conversations. The ability to have the starter home and then the step up home and then your kind of end all home before retirement, that landscape is shifting a little bit. And so, some of the things that we've seen is sometimes just trying to get that one more room in a new construction floor plan could be the difference of $100,000. And I think we get fixated on utility, making sure we have all that utility across the board for the next 20 years versus sitting there and seeing, can this house transition through different seasons of life with me? A thing that you and I talked about before, and I've always been big on, even though I've never had one in my house because I don't like guests, but I have a lot of clients that have guests. Most of my family lives local, so I don't have to worry about it. But it's, everybody always wants the guest room for the 1 or 2 times a year that somebody might come and visit. But then that means they don't get the office because they work from home now, right? COVID taught us that we have a lot of different utility in our home than what it used to. So, Murphy beds, that's something that is,
Yeah.
what a great design where you can sit there and have that built-in guest room, but also a beautiful desk at the same time. And Phil, you are even a purveyor of a Murphy bed, are you not?
I am. In fact, pardon the mess over here, but yeah, that's what you see in the corner. This room, my wife's going to kill me if she sees this, but so I'm being careful what I touch and what I'm moving around in here. But serves as our office, serves as a workout room. It serves, and we'll slide the device out of here, the exercise bike out of here. If on a rare occasion we have staying here, and you've got the wall bed, you've got the Murphy bed, and so it's a flex space, and we saw that when we built this a few years ago, and I think we're seeing that everywhere now, trying to be efficient and effective with your space now and anticipate some of the challenges as you may with the interest rate phenomenons and the lock-in effect, want to think about staying in your house a lot longer than average.
Is there something in particular that you see that builders are trying to be more cognizant of in their plans, moving forward, that they're taking into consideration? I think you used the term aging in place, so different seasons of life, young kids versus empty nesters. Is there anything that you guys are seeing is kind of being a little bit more common on that end?
Yeah, I think builders are, to the extent they can, trying to, as we were talking about before, keep the spaces flexible, look at options, or at least to have the primary bedroom on the lower floor. Also trying to, I was in Arizona last weekend, and I had never heard a larger saturation of home builder advertising than I did when we were listening to the radio there. And that's just because that market's in, its own unique challenges. But
Yeah.
at the same time, they were advertising a lot of the things that I'm hearing builders talk about here. And that's the, multi-generational component. It's kids moving back in, it's older relatives moving back in. We saw a little bit of that just with the pandemic and certainly the situation in some of the care facilities. But I think just with the affordability crisis and with the lock-in effect, there's people trying to maybe determine how long I can stay in the home, maybe much more so than what they did when they thought it was just going to be a stepping stone to a move up.
Well, and that's what I mean. Obviously, we always want to have repeat clients, but sometimes you can just be a raving advocate for your clients and they just become a great referral partner for others. But that's something as realtors that we can help articulate when we are going and looking at new construction product, is talking about what that looks like throughout the years. If I bought a home that fit the stage of my daughter being a toddler, and did that for that one stage, man, would I have missed out, because you had toys everywhere and stuff all over the place. And now my daughter doesn't even touch any of those things. And so what's important to her, she loves to code and she loves to create videos and do different things like that. So it's more of an office space. So now she and I, hers is in the corner. I have a great corner unit over here, and we do dual office together. But if I had bought my now house when she was in that stage of life, I would have missed out on a lot of utility to be able to be flexible. And I think that's something as realtors, we can help articulate and help with the building process. Don't buy for just right now. Think about the future seasons of life, because that's really neat when you get to be able to be a part of those decision-making abilities, make a discerning choice, and get them in something long-term that they can age in place. It's just kind of where we're at, and we need to be a part of that conversation. We've got a little bit left because I told you we would get you out a few minutes early so you can go literally run. So with the last 20 minutes that we have, let's talk about the development process and permitting process. That's always been, the dirty part of the infrastructure of our business, and specifically the builder side that caused a lot of angst. It's no secret that the city of Dallas locally was probably the one of the most inefficient ones to help us along with that process. So they were part of your panel. Where are we at now? Is it still the horrific backlog that we saw a year and a half ago, or have we made improvements there?
Well, Ashley, I'm happy to report, and I'll knock on wood when I do it, that the
Is
city
that
of
real wood
Dallas,
or plywood? Is that real wood or
um,
plywood though?
sounds real. So
Okay,
we'll go
we're
with
gonna
that.
go with that.
Hopefully.
Okay.
But it's they've cleared the backlog. Every builder that I've talked to in basically the last month has seen their permits get through in about 2 weeks. And yeah, part of that's certainly the improvements that the city's made to based on our feedback, their software, which is called Project Docs, which was the much maligned facilitator of the permitting. They've brought in some extra help. They have new management, new leadership that has really helped improve the relationship with the building community. So we're in a good spot there. The other part is just they've had a significant slowdown in the inbound traffic for reasons we've already discussed, and that's
Yeah.
helped them a lot too. And now we've got to focus on what are the things that led us into this situation. How can we kind of make hay while the sun's not shining right now, and
Yeah.
get them well equipped and the people that they need. They're moving their office from Jefferson Street, which is a pretty tight facility for them, over off of basically Stemmons and Mockingbird, which I think will be a little bit more conducive to spread out, has a lot of departments. And now we're starting to see issues where 2 or 3 departments are falling over on top of each other, and we're trying to work those out too. And so it's never a dull moment in Dallas, but at least my phone's not blowing up every other hour, which is good.
No, that's much appreciated. And it's the nature of the beast, and it's a large municipality with a lot of different inner workings, and both of our associations are constantly trying to work with them and not against them to try to figure out how to create better efficiencies and policies going forward. So it's great to hear that backlog has been cleared. I remember building, during COVID years. I know that's how we keep on reminiscing to those, but during that, I mean, we had one that sat for 8 months, and that was just to initially get the building process started. So to hear that we're clearing them in 2 weeks is a great update. So we appreciate that. Going into that though, we're in session, and we also have local elections coming up. And I think all the things we talked about are fantastic, but if we don't engage in these municipal races, the rest of it doesn't matter. So, Phil, what are your thoughts about kind of, municipal endorsements? I mean, you guys do the same thing that MetroTex does. We have candidate interviews and try to figure out who we can work with, who we can support, give talking points, and kind of go on from there. But why is that kind of the linchpin in your side of the business?
Well, it's for us, for all of us, we're collectively on the H team. We're housers, and we
Yeah.
need to have elected officials who get it and understand the challenges we face in everyday life, and the overall societal challenges that are caused by the lack of attainable housing. So these conversations are important, especially because even though your local elected officials impact your day-to-day life more, not just with your work life and the housing industry, but just everything from trash pickup to police to fire, everything else. They impact your daily life and the
Yeah.
safety of you and your family more than anybody else. But so few people participate in
Mhm.
them, and that's a real shame, because there's some good incumbents that we've supported, and we want to have stay on council. A few of them are even running unopposed, and then I think there are a few seats that are open, some of which are wide open, and others that we've had a challenging incumbent that we're maybe looking at some offers for. But I think, like MetroTex, we're in the middle of going through those interviews, and going to have some decisions here shortly on it. And you're well represented. I know you're on a lot of the committees that look at this stuff. Matthew
Yep.
does a great job representing you all. Him and I talk often, commiserate about these things too, and it's great.
No, it is. And in fact, I mean, I think one of the seats that's really interesting is District 3. in Dallas, because that's the one that was redrawn, and it encapsulates a lot of the area where we do have some vacant development opportunities and some other challenges that have arisen. And so that's one that's an open seat. I think that's one of the ones that is a little bit more of a cowboy seat, because nobody is truly in the lead on that one. But we have to be looking at that, because Dallas is a big landmass, and there's different quadrants with different issues, and that seat 3 in that kind of southwestern corridor of Dallas is one we'll be keeping our eyes on and be interested to see how that all works. But a part of what we do in those candidate interviews, I know we were talking about earlier, is doesn't mean that every single candidate, obviously, that you endorse is going to win, and it doesn't mean anything else. But if we can continue to empower them with talking points even through this process, so there's more discussion and data that's discussed. I know one from our end that we were kind of asking was on rental policy. There's a lot of rental ordinances and legislation that is trying to be passed. Landlord bad, tenant good. That's not what we need. We need healthy relationships on both sides. But the one thing we kept on asking when we were doing candidate interviews was, do you have an idea? Throw a number out there. There's no wrong answer of what you think the average tenant, what they pay. Just say a $1,500 a month rental. What a percentage of that goes towards property taxes? And we had two that we had yesterday. One said 10%, one said 15%. And we're closer to about 35% in the city of Dallas. And so it's just having those conversations with our potential local elected officials, and just empowering them to go back maybe with a little bit more hunger to do some research on what that looks like as far as affordability and property taxes and other things that both affect the traditional realtor side and the builder side of the market, because you guys are dealing with that too. It's really hard to do mass development in Dallas for that very reason. So both sides need to continue to keep being involved there. So but on another note is the affordability side, and we are in session right now. I'm not going to put you on the spot to talk about any bills or anything else as far as that goes, except for the fact that there is one that you might have helped author. Is that true?
Yeah, I don't mind saying I wrote or helped write, rather, Senate Bill 558 that
Okay.
Senator, formerly Representative, but now Senator Drew Springer is carrying. We're looking at somebody to try to take it in the House, ideally a Democrat, to get some bipartisan support. But basically what that does is it takes a statute that's been on the books for an awful long time that says if you have a permit application that gets ignored for 45 days, you get a refund. And that's been there for a while, but there are a few loopholes that Dallas and others have used to kind of navigate around that. So we're trying to close those loopholes and see if maybe they can have a little skin in the game too, just like the builders do when they're taking, it's $200 or $300 per project per day when you're waiting for your permit to get approved past the time it should be expected to, which is certainly within 45 days. So we'll see where it goes, but we've actually worked with the city of Dallas on some of the language for that, and seem to be in a good spot. So we'll again see where it goes. The whole legislative process is designed to kill bills. So just because a lot of people agree on it and want to go forward, it's kind of a really, especially in Texas, very, very jaded view of the Schoolhouse Rock bill on Capitol Hill. It just doesn't usually have a good ending for it there with the way the process is set up.
Well, I am a cheerleader for personal accountability, and that's basically what that would be, is just to keep everybody honest and accountable if the results that are supposed to be expected are not achieved. I think we can all do a little bit better along those sides. So with just a few minutes left to get you out of here early, anything that you want to talk about, Phil? Maybe some great points or anything from the industry summit that you guys just hosted that we haven't discussed or covered this evening?
Yeah, I think the main thing is just we were able to illustrate that with the conversation we had with the municipal officials. There is we have a great relationship with a lot of city staffers in a lot of different areas, and we realized that the frustrations that our members are facing on the other side of the counter, we need to work together on that, and that there are going to be more issues in the future. So it's as important to have that relationship with the city staff, just as important as it is for the council members. And if you get council members and elected officials that they're ultimately answering to, who get it and understand it, that makes their jobs a lot easier as well on that front. And it was also, if you look at the other side of it, the builder developer panel that we had, most of those builders, at least in some, in a couple cases, all of their communities are as busy as they possibly can be, and that shows me that there's a ton of optimism in this market.
Yeah.
It's great, as we all know, to be in Texas, but I think at the same time we need to realize that a lot of people in California a few decades ago felt the same way about that, and thought there wasn't going to be any into it. And then obviously we see where we are now, and there are other markets that could benefit from our missteps too. We just need to be cognizant of that. But I think there's certainly a ton of optimism, especially among builders who look to play to win and not to survive, and then try to find all the cost recovery and savings that we can, because it opens up a lot more of the market in terms of providing opportunities for people. But as we discussed before, we've got to, in the group, got into this a little bit. We've got to address the labor problems, because that's gonna plague us for the foreseeable future, and perhaps beyond.
No, that's fantastic. And when you mentioned Schoolhouse Rock, you just scratched an itch. And my mother, I don't know how many times, has recited that. And she put in there, I'm just a bill. Yes, I'm only a bill. I have heard that so much in my life, Phil. So thank you. Thank you for putting
Well,
that memory in place.
it'll be ringing in your head all night long. Then
Yes,
I'm sorry.
no,
I'll
it
probably.
is. No, that's okay. But she said no bill has a chance of ever getting through if it's not written. And I think that's the biggest thing, is that we still need to be active. Stop it, Sherry. So we still need to be active in continuing to advocate. Let's not get complacent. Let's not get comfortable with that opportunity and growth. And I think that's where, historically we can see other areas of our country that have prospered, but have not continued to, have those conversations, keep the foot on the gas with, having those conversations with our elected officials, producing legislation, being a part of those discussions. And that's what the Dallas Builders Association and MetroTex continues to do, is even in the great prosperous times or the lean times, we have to be a part of those conversations, regardless of what's going on in our marketplace. And so it's fantastic that we're in one of the most, if not the most thriving market in the United States. Yes, inflation has been a bear, and it's going to continue to obviously plague us. But, we have to just learn to go through it and do it in a way that still helps, because like you said, buying a home and owning a home is the largest ability to gain wealth in our country, and that's something that we all need to be continuous advocates of. So, Phil, what's the next great event that maybe some of our members could attend and benefit from at the Dallas Builders Association?
Well, we are. I don't know if you are going to do something similar. We're heading to the Capitol and going
Yes.
to have our Rally Day event on March 29th. So that's always a fun one. That's our fifth grade field trip, as I like to put it, where we send everybody down there. We also have our McSam Awards are a really good time. Those are coming up. They're basically the Oscars or the Grammys of home building. That's coming up on let's see, Saturday, April 22nd. And then I think everyone will be interested in our Parade of Homes will be on Saturday, May the 6th. I'm excited that we're going to have a number, probably somewhere between 6 and 8, 6, 7, or 8 recently constructed custom homes on tour and on parade there on that Saturday for people to check out and to see a lot of the trends that we talked about and some of the best builders in the area and the work that they've done.
That's fantastic. So go on the Dallas Builders Association website. You guys can see that information there. Definitely check out the Parade of Homes. We will be going to the Capitol on March 22nd. So we're super excited for that as well. And that's how we get our voices heard in the real estate industry. So yes, thank you, Kathy. We appreciate you chiming in. I know sometimes it's not always the type of show where maybe you're not asking questions and you're just sitting here and clamoring and taking notes. But Phil, it's always a great time for you to come on. We appreciate everything that you guys are doing on the builder side for obtaining homeownership and making sure that we can still have a seat at the table. And as TreePack says, and be not on the menu. We have a lot of cliches on our side too, but you go and have a wonderful evening supporting the Dallas Running Club. We wanted to get you out a few minutes early, and we are going to stand true to that. So Phil, thank you for all you do, and we hope you will come and join us again soon.
My pleasure, Ashley. I appreciate the conversation and look forward to talking with you soon.
Awesome.
Thanks a lot.
All right. Everybody have a good evening.